All right, the next question, I'm going to modify the question just a bit. It has to do with keeping a flat back in the deadlift. If you're a lifter who deadlifts and inevitably ends up in a round back position and you want to assume a more flat back position when you pull, what can you do to help facilitate that change? First thing I want you to know is that it's a hard problem to solve. I mean, it's not hard to deadlift with a flat back. That part is easy. But to deadlift heavy with a flat back is not easy. And just understand that what you really want to do here to deadlift heavy with a flat back, it's a tough thing it's a tough adaptation to make. Okay? So give yourself some patience, give yourself some time. Be understanding that what you want to do is difficult. So give it its due. Now, how do you go about doing that? Well, the first thing that you need to do is to treat the flat back deadlift like a completely new movement. And this is going to really come into play it's going to come into play for all the exercises, but especially for training that competition exercise. Okay? So what that means is that flat back deadlift for you is a new exercise. It's an exercise you haven't done before. So you don't have a PR. You don't have any benchmarks. You're not good at rating your RPE. You're a total beginner at this movement. Okay? So that's going to help you to reduce the weight on the bar because that's one of the first things that needs to happen. And for you at this point, any sort of rounding of your back is going to be considered a technical failure. So that's a missed lift on technique. Okay? If you're having reps where you're getting some rounding, now and then due to fatigue, I mean, it's going to happen. So if it's going to happen like that, then you can't move the weight up. If it's happening regularly like that, then you need to move the weight back down. Okay? That's going to be the first way that you address it, is basically to practice all your competition deadlifts by deadlifting correctly with perfect form, with no rounding. The second way that you're going to address this issue is through your assistance exercises. You need to do things like pause deadlifts. That's going to help you feel that bottom position, feel what a tight, locked-in bottom position feels like, so you'll be able to better generate that position when you do your heavier deadlifts. Okay? When you do your competition-style deadlifts. It's also going to develop isometric strength in that bottom position. For most people, that's usually when the rounding starts, is just after the bar breaks the floor. They'll set up in a nice flat position, but as soon as the bar breaks, they cave. So what you're going to do is you're going to do these pause deadlifts, again, keeping your back perfectly in a neutral position, and you're going to hold that for, say, a 2 count pause deadlift. You're going to hold it for 2 seconds at the bottom and then complete the lift. So you're going to develop isometric strength in that position. Again, not allowing for any sort of technical deviation. And then when we get to the supplemental exercises, this is where it gets a lot more tricky, because back rounding in the deadlift can really come from two different places. One is that the spinal erectors aren't strong enough to hold your back in the correct position. The second place is that your glutes are weak, and your back rounding is a compensation to get your glutes in a slightly more advantaged position so that you can maintain or so that you can move the weight rather. So either one of those two things can be true. Now the good news is that whether your glutes are weak or whether your back is weak, you're pretty much left with the same deck of supplemental exercises, something that trains your posterior chain. So you're going to be looking at good mornings. You're going to be looking at Romanian deadlifts and straight leg deadlifts and things of that nature. But really good mornings are going to be useful. And again, you're required to maintain that neutral position. So basically for you now, any sort of back rounding on any sort of movement is a missed lift. And you need to treat it like it's a new PR. So that first day that you go in, you're going to set a benchmark. And the second time you go in, you're going to exceed that benchmark by a little bit. But it's still not going to be to your old previous best. But that's still a PR. And you should celebrate it as if it's a PR. Okay? That's going to be really helpful for you in terms of mentally coping with that transition into a flat back deadlift. Now, the more severe your rounding problems, the longer the transition will take and the more difficult the transition will be. A very slight, subtle back rounding problem, you may hardly notice, but most of the time when people were asking this question, it's a more severe sort of back rounding anyway. So I just wanted to share some information on that. Let me know if you have any additional questions.